Okay. Let me know who wants some coaching. So I just did a few videos today. Hi, I'm Dr. Karla. Who is out of breath? Okay. Hi, I'm Dr. Karla. Check out my website, IME Community. It's awesome. So if you're a teen, 12 to 18, struggling with your weight or body image, or you're a parent of a teen who's struggling with their weight or body image, especially during the pandemic, then check out my website, IME Community. And I'm a pediatrician, let me put this down like a little bit. I'm recording on Zoom for my YouTube channel. Pediatrician for a long time, addressing childhood obesity epidemic, and a professionally certified life and weight loss coach, someone who's gone through my own weight loss journey. So when I'm talking like crush your sugar cravings, I'm really going to help you guys do that, because if we don't do that, that's just going to like undo any of the good work that we've done. So it's really important that we work on our sugar cravings, our urges, and the buffering with food. Okay, and those patterns in our brain. So I'm going to teach you how to do that. And today I did a video on, and the other thing is I'm an obesity medicine doctor, and I do a lot of coaching on low carb. On TikTok, I'm the doctor who's doing a lot to disrupt weight stigma and bias in healthcare, which is really cool. And let me turn this up. Okay, hopefully you can hear me. Disrupting weight stigma and bias in healthcare. I was just on the Kevin MD podcast about our viral TikTok study. So that was really, really cool. And let's see what else. And I talk about reversing insulin resistance. And I did a whole 12-week challenge for you guys on TikTok, YouTube, on my IME Community podcast, and led you through everything that I had. And I'm excited about all that stuff. And so now my next thing is I'm going to help you do like a 30-day goal sleigh to help you crush your sugar cravings. And so I'm just kind of leading up to that with teaching you a little bit. Like today, the video was about like what's in your way, what's your biggest obstacle to staying stuck in your sugar cravings, or almost feel like you have a sugar addiction or junk food addiction, and that what's really in your way is a thought. And it's not even the thought, it's the attachment to the thought. Like, it's like we get attached to our thoughts in our brain and our belief about like eating sugar, or whether we're addicted to sugar, or we're addicted to food, or we're addicted to junk food. And so that thought that we're attached to becomes like a really powerful belief, which a belief is a powerful thought that's on a loop in our brain. We are not our thoughts. Thoughts are optional. You don't have to keep choosing the thoughts, but we're not even aware of our thoughts are most of the time, right? I mean, they're just unconscious, programmed. Our brain just offers them up. Some of them are wacky. Good thing we're not our thoughts, but our thoughts create our feelings. So for instance, with sugar cravings, like because of our food system, our brains get conditioned to eat the sugary foods. So the over desire for sugary foods is conditioned in our brain because of the food system, the food addiction business model. We can go through all the reasons, because we're not taught how to cope without food. We're taught to cope with food. We're taught that we should be happy all the time. We should be seeking pleasure, and that there's something going wrong if we feel a negative emotion. So then we go to food to cope, instead of just allowing our human emotions that are there. We react, avoid, and resist them, and we buffer with food. And so those are all those things. But what's in the way? What is in the way? And this is for all of us who've been, and I only coach on stuff I've been through. What's in the way is one thought. There's just one thought that's in the way. And it's some sort of probably powerful thought, but maybe even a belief that you keep holding on to about your sugar cravings. And you may feel like, I'm stuck in this. It's never worked. I've never been able to stop eating sugar. You may feel like I'm addicted to sugar. I don't know what it would be like without sugar. It's inspiring seeing senior citizens share wisdom with us young guns. Respect the wrinkles. That's the kind of hate I get, Derek. Did you read that? Did you hear me? My husband's in there. Anyway, that's funny. Okay, yeah, there's a wrinkle for you. Anyway, so the thing is, like, there's a thought. So our thoughts create our feelings. I'm going to bring my little easel over here. Our thought, this is nothing new. We've heard this from, like, you know, cognitive behavioral therapy, for forever, right? I mean, philosophers, everybody talks about this, that it's our thoughts that create our feelings, and our feelings drive our actions or inactions. Inactions really are an action too. Like, right, if you stay stuck in your sugar cravings and that, or I like to think of it as like my brain's conditioned, or my brain, those are just really strong. I know you can't see the flip chart. I can tell. So, and that's okay. I'll figure it out. But our brains are conditioned, or you can, I like the word habituated. I like that. Like, it's just like a really strong habit pathway in your brain. And so the more we focus on it, the more that we focus on it, we create more of it. So if we keep feeding our sugar cravings with sugar and stay in that habit, then it becomes more powerful. But then we believe, and then we have evidence that we're stuck in it. We're addicted to it. I'm not saying that it doesn't have the same properties as an addiction, because it can, and it certainly does. Processed food addiction is really a real thing. And but when you have these kind of powerless thoughts that create a feeling of helpless, of hopeless, of unmotivated, of stuck, of defeated, then your actions are going to come from your feelings. And so if you're trying to crush your sugar cravings, if you're trying to get through, instead of like just white knuckling through the, you know, using willpower to white knuckle through your urges and your cravings for sugar, instead of allowing yourself to mindfully create some thought awareness about the thoughts and the feelings that are coming up when you have an urge, and if you're staying attached to that. And we're not used to challenging thoughts or beliefs in our society. So you may say that you have, yeah, I know the M looks like that on my brand, but I don't. I'm a nice person. So the thing is, like, what did you say, Derek? Okay, so here's just part of like what's called like a thought model. Let me see if I can move this without my phone falling, because it's been messing up. Okay, and let's see, mirror your video. Okay, there we go. All right, so I did this the other day with my last night when I was coaching my teens in my member community. So if you want to go to check out my website, so if you're a teen who's like 12 to 18, struggling with your weight, your body image, or you're a parent of a teen, go to my website, imecommunity.com. My membership is $24.95 a month. It's awesome, and you get coaching on Zoom, and we work through lots of awesome stuff. Okay, so we kind of flip between, I wish the screen was bigger. We flip between a restrictive mindset and a permissive mindset, okay? And I was coaching a teen last night, and she was like, oh, I do that with not just food. Like, she's like, I do that with studying for a test. She gave an example of it. It's like, she'll say, like, I could study, but if I study and then try my best and I don't do well, then it's easier just to like not study and say the reason that I didn't do well is because I didn't study. So it's like kind of like she's like fear of failure. So when we have an urge or a craving, and how we address it, and like with food, we oftentimes go, and our society teaches us that there's like kind of like two swings of a pendulum. And I've lived like my whole life until like I started life and weight coaching like over 4 years ago, and here's me. there's me before I lost weight. But anyway, I spent my life kind of like a lot and more like the restrictive, though I didn't have any eating disorder at all, but I was always just super thin growing up, like the skinniest kid in my class. But it just never occurred to me that I'd ever have a weight issue. But I developed one, and I had kind of a more restrictive mindset. And that's this kind of rigidity with every achievement, everything I do. It was like that negative self-talk, inner critic was there. And I was really attached to that voice as like, I have to like, almost like it's like this punishing harshness. That's what diets teach us, like on again, off again, rigid, restrictive, you need to like be whipped into shape type stuff, listening to that negative self-talk to motivate myself. But that just becomes really tiring, right? And so when we do the restriction, then our brains automatically create, and we have sugar cravings and our brains are conditioned, then what happens is we get even more over desire for sugary foods. So I'm just going to say, like, if you are someone who has a lot of sugar cravings, you're eating a lot of refined sugar, you're eating processed carbs, you're buffering with food, that's a lot of us. Okay. And I work through this, and I think it's so powerful to work through this. As you're like making any changes in your health or you're working on weight loss. So especially if you have a tendency to binge and not just overeating, but you're binging, you definitely don't want to go like it's a switch and you're going to go like all or nothing. This is why diets are harmful and don't work. So we want to create some mindfulness. We don't want to do this where we're like, oh, I'm going to just go all in. And then you're going to create more over desire for the food, and you're going to eventually go off of this. And this is going to permissive mindset over here, which I know you can't see it. Oh, it's weird when it's mirrored. Permissive mindset is over here, and you're going to swing to that. And then you're going to binge more. Okay. And then we're going to overeat. So we don't want to like just keep ourselves, we don't want to keep ourselves swinging from like one side of the pendulum to that you've had binge issues. Yeah, it's really common. I love the work of Katherine Hansen. It's awesome. Her work's Brain Over Binge. Obviously, cognitive behavioral therapists who are knowledgeable about binge eating disorder are good to work with. I've had some of my patients, I'm an obesity medicine doctor too, so I've had some of my patients on Vyvanse that works really well. But I'm not giving out medical advice. I'm just offering opinions and just sharing experiences. Okay, so with so what are some thoughts that you might have about your sugar cravings or eating sugar or your urges and cravings? Somebody posted on the video that I did today that they eat cereal. They go to bed, they eat, and then 2 hours later they're hungry. Vyvanse didn't work for you. Okay, sorry about that. And then, but the cognitive behavioral therapy, the work of Jennifer Hansen is really awesome. She has coaches, she has that book, Brain Over Binge, but she talks about like, disrupting the binge, but then allowing your emotions. And that's kind of the first thing is to recognize and acknowledge. And that's what I was coaching you all on today. And what I'm coaching you all on now is recognize what feelings are coming up when you have an urge or craving for sugar. It is complicated. Yes. And it's just, you can change your brain. Like your brain, it's a conditioned pathway in your brain. And so it's just a strong pattern that you have, but all of our brains are adaptable and malleable all throughout our lives. Okay. So, but you have to intentionally challenge your brain, and it's not like white knuckling through it. So you're getting some emotional triggering, right? So you can recognize when you're getting the ping, when you're getting the urge, when you're getting triggered, and you want to create self-awareness. Okay. And that is not you. Like those patterns aren't you. Those are just patterns and pathways in your brain. And like I said, grace and compassion for yourself, because look at our food system and look at how it's we're conditioned. Holidays put me in a frizzy, sugar high of cookies, hot chocolate, and candy. So yes, very common. So you can think of that in a couple of ways, okay? And what you're probably having are these thoughts. You're probably having a lot of the mix of these thoughts and going from one to the other. Like, I'm going to be restrictive, I'm going to be good. Those are bad foods. And then I don't want to feel deprived. It's a holiday. I'm going to eat all the things. I'm going to enjoy it. And then you're going to be like feeling maybe that remorse after this. And then you're going to swing back to being harsher, punitive, and more restrictive on yourself. Okay. So it's just your lack of recognition and thought awareness as you're going into the holidays. So when we make decisions ahead of time, so you make it from your prefrontal cortex, your higher functioning brain, and not just in the moment. Maybe you decide like that's an exception day and this is what I'm going to eat. Okay. And I don't have binge eating disorder at all, but I had recently, we were with our family in Texas and for the weekend, and I didn't know there would be all these pies there. And my daughter had made one, she's in college, and she made this apple pie. So I'd planned on eating that. I usually don't eat flour and sugar except when it's planned. And so I was like, I'm going to eat Catherine's delicious apple pie she made. And so I started eating that. But then all of a sudden, for my brother-in-law's birthday, they brought like 4 other pies. We had like 6 different kinds of amazing pies. And so like, and there's the family stresses. Let's notice that, let's note that, so you're just building up like the toolkit, and there are going to be days when we don't get it right, but we need to have compassion for ourselves. And we don't want to swing back to restriction, because then that'll drive more of the binging. So you don't want to punish yourself if you do like overeat or overconsume those sugar things. I ended up having like several pieces of the different kinds of pies throughout the day. And I was like, wow, this is like a pie binge, And so then I had just total compassion for myself, and I just went back to my regular way of eating. And I realized that the thought that I had was the main strongest thought I had was deprivation. So when I created that with my mind, like if I miss out, and FOMO, fear of missing out, scarcity, I'm not going to get these pies again, which is probably true actually, because I think I've made one pie in my life. I'm not going to make those things, but anyway, I'm not good at it. Excuse me. So it was through the thought work that I did that I was creating that kind of, I realized I was creating that deprivation, but I went into it just totally like, in the moment, because I hadn't had any intentionality about, usually I've been eating low carb for over 4 years. So I'm like, it's usually easy for me. And so I went into that without like any thought of what it was going to be like. So you can have like an exception day and be like, I'm going to try some of all the things because I really enjoy it. That's part of the tradition. I enjoy food, but I don't need to overeat this food to excess. Do you have food waste issues where you feel guilty about wasting food? When you start eating it, do you need to kind of do what we call like tedious powerful? So you need to like eat it just super slowly so you can truly enjoy it. Like now, usually when I eat sugar, if I eat it like once every couple of weeks, that's actually a lot for me, flour and sugar. But if I do, I really enjoy it. Like it's like a true treat. Whereas before, when I was over consuming carbs and refined sugars and had so much more of the sugary cravings, I was really kind of mindlessly eating it. It wasn't for actually any sort of like enjoyment or like family traditions as much as it was just like that kind of habituated conditioning in my brain. And so I wasn't really, I didn't have any sort of like healthy boundaries or relationships or self-regulation around it. Anyway. Okay, so here's how it works. So we want to be in the middle. We want to have a balance with our thoughts. We just recognize we are not our thoughts. Our thoughts are like a rainbow. They just come and they go. Our thoughts are like clouds going by, but you're the quiet confidence of the blue sky. Okay. And when we realize that and we have some awareness, then we can realize like we can challenge it. And then we realize like our thoughts are not like true. Like our brains are just going to keep telling us stories. So what is the story that your brain is telling you that you're believing about sugar cravings, about your sugar intake? Do you feel like you're I worked with a client who she had to have her cheat days, and she said kind of like sneakily, like I just really feel like I'm addicted to sugar. And so let me show you how this works. So if you have like this, there's 5 different things. Okay, good. You can see it. 5 different things. If you have a problem, if you have, it's like cognitive behavioral therapy, thoughts create our feelings, feelings drive our actions or inactions. Your current thinking creates your current results. Your current thinking creates your current reality. We think it's the circumstances. We think it's the food. We think it's our weight. And so then we go to change. This is what diet culture teaches us. We go to change that and think that that's going to make us feel a certain way, which is why diets fail, because you just can change the size of your body. I'm not saying you're not going to have all these amazing things come from it, because you will, right? You're going to feel physically better and reached a goal and all these things. But at the same time, like, we're human beings, we're going to be suffering here. We're going to be suffering there at our end goal, right? We're going to have 50-50 emotions, right? We're going to be like, our brain's going to have these restrictive thoughts and our permissive thoughts. And when you realize like, that's just a thought, we're going to have all the emotions. And once you're willing to be an emotional adult and welcome all the emotions, and you're allowing them and responding to your emotions, then you don't have to go to food. And so you start to get out of emotional childhood, and you get out of being reactive, being avoidant, and what's the other one? Oh, resisting it, which is what I do with a lot of my emotions. And so it's been a lot of just self-discovery, self-learning, self-awareness. And the way that you can, like, my coach worked with me on a lot of these, like, shifting the pathways in my brain, is just, it's so powerful to recognize when you're triggered with an urge, or when you're being reactive, like with your kids or your spouse or at work, or, maybe you've had trauma or something. And I can just, I mean, sometimes it just comes up viscerally, like in our body, right? We're so triggered, and it feels like, I say it feels almost like Jaws comes and like I'm swimming, and then it just gets like taken, I just get taken under or something. And let me know if you have any questions or your thoughts. What are your thoughts about your, like, sugar cravings and sugar addiction? But let's get back to I know I talk about a lot of different things. Okay. So 5 things that it'll fit into: circumstance, trigger our thoughts create our feelings drive our actions or inactions, and our actions create our result. This is like the thought model that the life coach school came up with this. But this is all old and it's been around forever. Okay. So anyway, so my client who kept saying, this is her thought was, I feel like I'm addicted to sugar. Okay. So here's her thought. So it's just food, right? Food is food, food is food. Add serious depression to that. Yeah, exactly. Yes. I mean, obviously there's significant mental health issues that go on. I am addicted to sugar is what her thought was. So when I say I am addicted to sugar, what does that create as a feeling? If you're that thought for you, I mean, tell me some of the feelings that you may think and that come up for you when you think, how would you feel if you are thinking that I'm addicted to sugar? I can tell you, like, I feel powerless when I hear that. That's a powerless statement, right? It's also a very, like, it creates desire, helplessness. Okay, let's put that. Helplessness. Okay, so we, as human beings, yeah, that's awesome. Thanks for sharing that. As human beings, everything we do is to try to make ourselves feel a certain way, or to avoid feeling a certain way. Out of control, helplessness, yeah, powerless. Yeah, so that's like, I mean, just from that one thought that she keeps, she was almost like, can you tell me if I am, can you tell me if I am? Because if I give up my cheat days, and I'm like, you can always do what you want. Like, you're your own person. Like, it doesn't matter. Like, you always get to choose. And, what serves you? What are your goals? And is that working for you? And so she was stuck in this patterning for her of helplessness, of powerlessness, of feeling out of control with food, not because of the food, but because she does have really strong pathways in her brain that she kept feeding with eating the sugary food. So on the Saturdays when she had her cheat day, then what she did was she binged. And she even waited for, like, her daughter and her husband to leave the house. And she one time went back to the grocery store, and I'm not calling her out. I mean, she would share this. She's awesome. And she's just a really powerful awareness, and she would drive back to the grocery store and get a cake from the bakery that she had seen there when she was there, and she went home to eat it, like, in secret. So it, like, then she started with this thought, attachment to the thought, I am addicted to sugar. Then she's like, oh, I've got all this evidence for it because I'm thinking about it all the time during the week. So she created within herself her own, like, restrictive and indulgence, like, permissive cycle for herself, where she was just swinging back and forth. Instead of having, like, a balance intentionally, she was just creating this. And it was because she kept holding on to thoughts like, I am addicted to sugar. And she did feel helpless. And so then the actions were to binge. Okay. So the action was binge, and the action came from the feeling. Okay. And then she had inactions too, right? So then she had the shame. She creates shame. She judges herself and feels even more helpless. And then shame's a huge trigger that, like, fuels itself, right? Shame begets shame. And then she has the remorse, and then you have more evidence, like, yeah, I am. I'm just, like, there's something wrong with me, brokenness. And the result is that your result is tied to your thought. I am stuck in sugar conditioning. I'm going to call it conditioning because I was, like, allowed her, it's like a coach. I'm not going to tell her what to do, like, but I'm just creating powerful awareness. Like, it depends on you, like, what helps you, what word is helpful to you, because words in the language are really powerful. So for her, I think the word addiction drove even more desire for it, and the helplessness and the powerlessness, so it was what she thought about that word. But so it was this thought, but it was also, like, the power of that word. So then I offered up, like, just the reality of the neuroscience, and she's a nurse. So it was like, let's think of this in a science way. Your brain is conditioned to over desire sugar. It's just a strong pathway. You haven't challenged it. You've given all the power to that. Okay. Can we create awareness around that? That's just a reality. So when you understand, like, it's just science, it makes sense. I'm not broken. There's nothing wrong with my brain at all. It's just that this is, like, habituated or conditioned to over desire it. And it's just a pattern. And so then I can't remember how we shifted to it. She didn't want to give up her Saturday cheat days. But then I was like, at a certain point, I think they had worked for her in the past where she would eat like, she didn't eat like flour and sugar during the week, and she did awesome. She had zero problem with that. And then she ended up like on the weekends, she called it her cheat day, which I don't think you should call it that, because then again, we get into that thinking of the swinging back between restrict and permissive, and we don't need to do that to ourselves, right? Like we can always eat what we want, but it's like I always think of it as like what you want your relationship to food to be, or with food to be, but also like a statement or a mantra for you. Like I enjoy food, I enjoy quality food that I love and think is delicious, but not to excess anymore. Like I use food for nourishment and for enjoyment, but I don't need to cope with food. I don't cope with food. I don't use food. I show up for my human journey. I'm responsive to all my emotions. I welcome all my emotions on my human journey. It's not perfect. Some days, you know, my husband's listening in the other room. He's probably like, he has to deal with all the emotional reactivity. Well, he is too, you know, we all are. It's just a daily intentional like habit practice. It's like developing your own resiliency toolkit. And so like, that's why diets don't work, because it's just like so simple minded. Like a diet is like, oh, just eat this. And it doesn't, like this work is like really powerful self-awareness, self-discovery. And it's not as simple as saying, oh, tomorrow I'm just going to go off all sugar. And actually, when we do that, like the day before I started my weight loss and life coaching journey with Dr. Katrina Ubel over 4 years ago, September 2017, and this is me with my family in Hawaii before I started, I ate 4 Krispy Kreme donuts, you know, like throughout the day, because my brain was like, I was like, oh my gosh, I'm starting this tomorrow. I didn't know what to expect. And so, I mean, I went intentionally to get it. So I was, again, creating deprivation. So when we create deprivation as a feeling, we create it with our thoughts. And when we don't challenge it, it's like, am I really deprived? Am I really, you know, it's okay to have a bite. It's okay to not eat it all. So anyway, so just having some intentionality. So what are some thoughts around, so yours may not be as powerful as hers, or make you feel as helpless or out of control as I feel like I'm addicted to sugar. Or what are some other things? You may be like, I had one of the teens I coached, she said, is it possible for a human being, she didn't even know it was possible scientifically, for a human being to eat sugar in moderation? And I said, yes, it is. Is that what you want for your goal? And she did really want that, because it didn't feel like she could do that. And that's because we have to be really intentional. I'm going to help you all with this, as I'm going to do like a 30-day goal sleigh to crush your sugar cravings and really help you through it, because this is what I see. Oh my God. So the mirror image is not working for me. Oh my God, my hair. I have spatial issues. So the thing is, like, you can start and say like, oh, I'm going to eat low carb, and I'm going to cut back on, refined sugar and processed carbs. Awesome. That's what I'm going to advocate for you to do. Okay. Eat more complex carbs like vegetables, proteins, and healthy fats. Awesome. Great. You know, Nate, you understand the principles of the obesity code by Dr. Jason Fung. You watch my videos. You've heard about insulin resistance and how diets don't work going low fat and low calorie. You know that obesity is hormonal. I stopped carbs and sugars for 2 weeks and I felt awful. Yes. You have to figure out, in the beginning, you have to know what to expect. And then when we're used to buffering, where we're looking externally to fix ourselves internally, which we do with food, especially like carbs, then what do we look for? What do we do to make ourselves feel better? And then we're used to getting like a dopamine zing, like a quick zing in our brain when we have it. And then we also like through the day, like I was, especially with Diet Coke, like I was, to me, that I had a Diet Coke addiction, and it just didn't help me with my weight. It drove a lot of my weight gain, I think, and urges and cravings for carbs. But anyway, so I had to, if I wanted to reach any goals with my weight or health, I needed to stop drinking it altogether because I couldn't create it. But anyway, I looked forward to it. You know, like you have the anticipation releases the same kind of like drives more of the over desire for it. Okay. And so when you go cold turkey on it, you have to be like intentional about it. It doesn't mean that stopping, or you may want to take it slowly, right? And just kind of cut that gradually. But we don't intentionally get ahead of the, you're welcome. If you don't intentionally get ahead of the urges, cravings, and buffers, I did this week 3 of my Reverse Your Insulin Resistance Challenge on TikTok and on, if you go to IME Community and check out the YouTube videos that I created, week 3 is a powerful week. And, but I'm going to help you with this because it's what ruins a lot of people's efforts is that we don't put enough into, we need more than like just little baby, we need more than bullet point recommendations, like cut back on carbs. You know, I mean, us doctors and healthcare systems have just failed miserably at all this. We don't give enough support. You know, we don't have the physical time to do that. It's just not, the healthcare model and system isn't the right one to support really like health transformation or true behavior change. I think we all know that. And then all the advice we've been giving out has been pure crap, which is really bad. But anyway, we need more support as somebody who's like high level resources, educated, a doctor who's been doing it. I started and led a whole clinic, obesity clinic for children. And I needed like all hands on deck, like with life coaching, learning all the tools of self-compassion, and then the low carb lifestyle, just learning a metabolic health approach and how to do it. But like with the urges and the cravings and the sugar, you know, I'm just learning so much about processed food addiction and the power of it, and how we have to really intentionally help our brains to create new pathways and intentionally get out of the old ones and give ourselves a break and be compassionate because it is addictive. I mean, it has all the same properties as nicotine, as opioids, as alcohol. I mean, and you have the withdrawal symptoms too, which is what you may have experienced. So it can become really miserable, like you're buffering your emotions with food and getting a dopamine zing. So that's gone. So then what is there to look forward to when we kind of live on this level, when we're like looking forward to those dopamine zings and those treats and rewards, and then we feel like we're depriving ourselves. And then sometimes we get into judgment. It's like, oh, that Dr. Karla on TikTok, she's always showing up saying I need to go low carb, and it's her damn fault, you know, that I feel this way. And I felt that way too when I first went off it, but I was the best thing was like, I knew like what to expect. I also knew nothing was going wrong. I also knew like every day I was getting closer to my goal. So it does take like 4 to 6 weeks for your body to go from being a sugar burner that's like carbohydrate adapted, because our bodies are just used to creating status quo based on what we put in them. Okay, so it's used to taking the refined sugars and carbs, to create ATP within our cells for energy. Okay, but we want to move to, and also if we have insulin resistance, we have our fat stores on a lockdown because insulin is a great storage hormone. So literally you cannot mobilize your fat stores for energy, which is how you lose weight. Which if you have insulin resistance or metabolic syndrome and you have weight here, like in the middle, and like visceral fat, or like fatty liver disease, or like in like an apple shape, then you definitely have insulin resistance, and you will not, if you go low fat, if you just cut calories and don't look at the quality and the composition of the calories, we want to have quality food. That's really it, like quality food. If you don't do that, then you're not going to lose the visceral fat. Okay. So that'll stay there. And that's what we want to lose, right? That's what's going to improve and decrease our insulin resistance and really get us to our healthy weight, like set point range. Okay. Because that's healthy weight loss. So then you become fat adapted after you've gone off of the carb. You don't have to go completely off carbs. Like I'm not keto or anything. But when you cut back on refined sugars and processed carbs for about 4 to 6 weeks, then your body becomes fat adapted, and it's awesome. So instead of feeling miserable, white knuckling, resisting, like you're restricting, you feel like it's like a little wave instead of like this tsunami, like, or Jaws taking you under. Okay. It doesn't feel like you're white knuckling anymore. So I call it dialing in with the food and like being really intentional about that. And then healthy foods for that is a 1.5 fat around the liver, healthy foods for that. So do you have fatty liver? Do you know the extent of it, like the range? Because it's like a continuum. The foods for that are to definitely cut back on your refined sugars and processed carbs. And so eat more protein, eat more healthy fats, and you can reverse it pretty quickly, actually. If it is fatty liver and it hasn't gotten to like a further stage down the road. So I don't know if you've had an ultrasound or if you've had just lab workup or if you've had a liver biopsy even to check for it. And then I don't know like the other things going on with your liver, eating tuna and sardines. Okay. And what else? Yeah, that's some good omega-3s, right? But you want to eat a variety of foods, right? I mean, eat vegetables, eat complex carbs and whole grains and protein. And if you have good kidney function, you know, you can increase your protein and you drink water and, you know, just eat really quality foods and then take your time with it. The main thing though is to get off sugary beverages first. That insulin resistance causes fatty liver disease. So if you have fatty liver, and an apple, do you have Crohn's? Crohn's too? Oh, so you can eat some of the things. I know you've been on my lives before, so I think you told me that. Okay. Oh, well, you have a lot going on. So, but you can reverse it if you eat more protein and fat. I don't know what, you know, with your GI issues about the fats and things like that. But so, you know, healthy fats. Diabetics have problems. It depends on what kind of diabetes it is. Like if it's type 2, yes, there is. So fasting insulin is the best thing to check. And that's gonna, the thing of it is you want to get the actual number from your doctor. A lot of doctors, even I was told when I was in the, when I was the medical director for the pediatric weight management clinic, that our pediatric endocrinologist said, oh, don't check fasting insulins. They're so unreliable. Well, I wish I wouldn't have listened to him because if you wait for the fasting blood sugar, the hemoglobin A1C to be elevated, you probably had insulin resistance for 10 or 15 years even before that. So fasting insulin is great. Get the number because the lab ranges don't pick it up either. So if the doctor says, oh, it looks normal, it could be like 25. You know, and 25 is the cutoff range that if it's 25 or higher, then it's elevated, your fasting insulin is, and you probably have insulin resistance per the lab, but it's much lower. It's probably like more like 8 or 10 at least. So get the numbers from your doctor. You need a lipid panel. So you need a fasting lipid panel to check for all the cholesterol levels. And you need also, you want to make sure to be checked for metabolic syndrome, which is just a constellation of different findings that are related to insulin resistance. And so that's your waist circumference. You want to be checked for diabetes, so fasting insulin, but also fasting blood sugar and your hemoglobin A1C for sure, and maybe an oral glucose tolerance test. And what else? Oh, your liver function test, because that's related to insulin resistance. Obviously, you need to have your blood pressure checked to see if you have hypertension. But if your triglycerides are high, your HDL, which your good cholesterol, is low, your a Q1 panel. So those are all things to look for. There are things on the exam. There's things in the family history. If you've been overweight or obese for a while, you probably are insulin resistant. And unfortunately, like our food system and the food addiction business model has driven that. I think it's an epidemic of insulin resistance and fatty liver disease. And nobody talks about it because, I mean, you don't have symptoms when you have fatty liver disease, and you're not going to be jaundiced when you have fatty liver disease. It's like a silent thing. Your liver isn't always enlarged when you have fatty liver disease. It's reversible, but for me, like as a pediatrician and obesity medicine doctor, I've taken care of so many, even really young children with fatty liver disease because of the like sugary beverages and all the sugars and processed carbs added in. And if you are a teen, even who develops fatty liver disease, then you have a 75% increased risk of having chronic liver disease and failure compared to someone who develops fatty liver disease in their 20s. So it's really important that we get this out there. The doctors like me, there aren't a lot of us, but we're like, we haven't gotten it right. We haven't helped people. Diets are bullshit. Advice from healthcare has been crap. There's weight stigma and bias in healthcare. So, saying low fat, the dietary guidelines, a food pyramid, it's not been helpful. We got to help our patients, help them cut back. So for me as a coach and obesity medicine doctor and pediatrician and somebody who's done this work and gone through my own weight loss journey, it took me 11 months to lose 57 pounds, and I've been able to keep it off with a low carb lifestyle, but with life coaching and lots of self-compassion work, is that we need the support. Like we need the support. And so that's why, like, you have to show up for yourself. Do you utilize weight loss meds in your adolescent weight loss program in an older teen and overweight? That's awesome. Thanks. Now my platform is IME Community. So it's a life and weight coaching website platform. It's all web-based. And I do coaching. So I'm not seeing patients clinically. I did do some, not very much actually, for actual weight loss. I mean, I prescribed a lot of like metformin, Contrave wasn't out or wasn't indicated. Let's see, like topiramate. I didn't do a lot of that for the adolescents. In fact, the more that I wanted to do in my clinic, the more that children's where I worked peripheralized me because they wanted to just funnel teens to the bariatric surgery pathway. So no. But yeah, there are a few that are indicated that are okay. I mentioned Vyvanse earlier. Yeah, I know. I mean, it's helpful for some, but it's like the first visit that they come. And just because we haven't optimized the medical management, which is what I wanted to do, and talk about like obesity is hormonal, let's reverse insulin resistance, let's do more coaching, let's do more support. They didn't want that. And they actually ended up cutting the behavior supports, which really sucked. And also the database we were working on with the university here. Yeah, I've seen so many bariatric surgeries gone wrong. I know. I think the main thing is, there are some really great surgeons out there in teams. I'm starting Vyvanse next week, hoping it'll help with my binge eating. Yeah, it can be pretty helpful. I would never recommend for a teen. Yeah, it just depends on the family. It depends on the multidisciplinary team. Hopefully they have the behavioral supports in place, and then, like have had a metabolic health approach. The thing that I really, really can't stand about it is that I'm a part of this section on obesity, which I, love being a part of. And there's a lot of amazing doctors out there, but still a little bit stuck on pushing adults. Pushing the, with pandemic weight gain, we have even more teens with severe obesity. So when I started IME Community, it was 9%, but that was pre-COVID. 9% of US teens and adolescents have severe obesity, which means that their BMI is 20% higher than the cutoff for obesity. So when I started my nonprofit in 2008 called Teach a Kid to Fish, creating community solutions for children's health, so we worked on childhood obesity prevention, the prevalence of severe obesity in teens was 4%. When I started the clinic in 2015, the data I was using was 6%. No, I did not have bariatric surgery. And then, no, I never had any comorbidities. I was lucky. My labs were all fine. And I did not have surgery, and I would not have had surgery. And then the I wouldn't have met the criteria for it at all. Does it work? Yeah, sometimes it does, for sure. I mean, there's some lots of really great stories. And I mean, when you have a morbidly obese, a teen with morbid obesity, or an adult with it who's been struggling, and I mean, it can save their life, So, I mean, the gastric sleeve is what the surgeons used who I worked with. And I really loved working with the surgeons, and they had a good team and wanted the best and wanted, all good intentions. It's just, you're working in a system and it's for profits, right? So, I mean, they weren't optimizing the medical management, which was really frustrating to me. But anyway, now that I have no idea what the severe obesity rate is now in teens, but it's worse during the pandemic because pandemic weight gain has been so bad. And so, and also the other comorbidities, issues like diabetes, fatty liver disease, all those things are going to be worse. Over 400. Are you asking a question? It depends on there's different classes and staging of it. Depends on what you use. And the cutoffs and different based on gender, obviously. And they usually use BMI and not just the weight. But yeah, that would be definitely morbidly obese. And less than that, less than 400 would be morbidly obese. But I had a patient my first day of my clinic. There's like the Edmonton stages for obesity, and then there's class 1, 2, and 3 of, depending on, like, if you're overweight, you're class 1 based on the BMI range, and then go to obese, and then more like severe obesity for class 3 with comorbidities like diabetes and things like that, metabolic syndrome. I can't get my 10,000 steps in when it's cold outside. Okay, first of all, no, I don't accept insurance. I just show up here to coach all you all on TikTok. I can't get my 10,000 steps in when it's cold outside. That's a thought. Also have compassion for yourself. Okay, give yourself a break and start working through some of that. Okay, you have all or nothing thinking with, why do you have to have 10,000? Can you get less? Okay, it's okay. So start doing a little bit of thought work around that. Okay, I'm going to get an elliptical. Okay, that's awesome. Cool. Yes, we all should challenge each other. If we live in cold places like I do, I live in Nebraska, and then we go to Colorado, like, we should challenge each other to get outside and do things, because I've like kind of backtracked on some of that too, and I was doing awesome. And what do you need to support yourself? Like, we need accountability. Do you need, what kind of like measures of success? What kind of beliefs do you have about it? What kind of how can you plan ahead, one day ahead of time? And it's not gonna just like arrive, right? I mean, it's not gonna arrive to you. I had a lot of like diet thinking, almost beliefs about exercise too. Like it was all or nothing thinking, kind of rigid. Like if I wasn't doing 10,000 steps a day outside, then it didn't count and nothing counted or mattered. And then I was like, that's not helpful or useful. And then my goal was like to just move every day. And so write down some of your beliefs that you have about yourself and exercise and movement, and then like where you want to be and what's your why. And you have your own like vision statement about it, because that's like really powerful work. And then you can kind of like what are the obstacles in your way? Well, it's cold outside. It's freaking cold outside. But you could do like some belief upgrades. I had a fitness coach. She worked on that with me. So you can do a belief upgrade that's really powerful, where it's like, for one of the things, yes, I do. Hold on. One of the things is like, I was thinking I'm not an athlete, which there's robust evidence to prove that. But I was like, I'm not an athlete. That was, again, just like a real strong, powerful thought in my brain. Okay, where were we with our thought model? So that's a thought. It's just a rainbow, comes and goes. It's like a cloud going by, but I believed it. In my brain's like, look at all the evidence. You were number 0 on the basketball team. Yes. Okay, awesome. Thanks for joining, AC. My kids aren't struggling with weight, but they are junk food addicts at 3 and 5. Okay. Hold on one second. I want to finish this thing because this is powerful. So my fitness coach, I worked with her for 8 weeks. It was awesome. And so I needed that, like somebody, like some accountability, something, so maybe you need that too. Like, how can you create some accountability with somebody else? Maybe we could do it here. But she said, do a belief upgrade. Instead of saying like, I'm not an athlete, then I myself had to do that work and create a belief that served me. And it was, my body was created to move. My body was made to move. That's it. Like, I don't have to keep saying, I'm not an athlete. You're not an athlete. You're not an athlete the whole time. That's stupid. Like, I'm 52. Like, I think the news is out. Like, I'm not going to be in the Olympics. Okay. My kids aren't struggling with weight, but they are junk food addicts at 3 and 5. Okay, so first of all, like, I want you to recognize that is a thought, okay? That food is food. So trying not to like shame them or push them or get into this like back and forth, especially with a 3-year-old. I mean, the 5-year-old might be more reasonable, but 3-year-olds are unreasonable human beings. No matter how sweet they are, okay? They're going to win. They're going to win the argument, okay? And it becomes like more desirable for them, of course, okay? And they're just, they're in a habit. It doesn't mean you're stuck. It doesn't mean they're actual addicts. They probably have really just kind of strong habits or conditioning. And it's like when I would coach parents on, their babies sleeping through the night. And it's like, don't think that this is like this is like a transitional thing. Like, you're not stuck in this forever. But if you have like shaming thoughts, judging yourself as a mom, or then you're putting it on the kids when you say they're junk food addicts at 3 and 5. That's probably because you're judging and shaming yourself as a mom. And it's just, when we do that, no, I don't shame them for sure. Yeah, I was just wondering if we can help them pick healthier foods. Oh yeah, sure. I'm just thinking of some of the stuff that goes through our heads, and then we get like rigid. It's just really, family meal times are so important, where you kind of sit together and you guys are role modeling it. That's so important. You have fruits and vegetables out. It's just a part of your life. That like a 3 and a 5-year-old, I mean, like, we need to be exposed to things like 10 or 15 times before we acquire a taste for it. So don't make it mean anything like about your parenting, or, whether they try it or not, whether maybe they don't like it. Also teach them like no thank you bites, like you can, if they're getting in, I just saw a video on TikTok tonight where the kid was like, ugh, like the little toddler. He was little, he was like maybe 2 or something. And the mom was up, it's like, eat the food. And he was like, acting like he was throwing up, which was a funny video. But it's like, you want to teach them to be like more gracious with it. And obviously, like the Ellen Satter work is beautiful, Ellyn. I don't know if you've heard of her. I'll write it here. Ellen Satter. Ellen Satter and the division of responsibility is such beautiful work. She's a dietitian. She's world renowned. Like she's for young children, and she's so helpful. She has the division of responsibility is like, yeah, and she has beautiful books like This Child of Mine. She has videos of how to create like positive experiences with eating with your toddler. And so you don't want to like get into hey Victor, you don't want to get into like a back and forth with your kid over it. And so your like the division of responsibility is like the parent's role is to obviously get the food in the house and to provide some sort of routine and structure. And then the kid decides if they're going to eat and like how much. Okay. So the parents are kind of like deciding the what and the when. And then the kid is like, if and how much. Is the division of responsibility, like even from just like toddlers. And so her work is really beautiful, lots of compassion, and then just kind of offering it and trying not to be a short order cook for a 3 and a 5-year-old. So yeah, sometimes we struggle to get them to eat all together, but then they go to the pantry and grab. Yeah. And you can kind of decide, it's just a process. There's no perfection. You're not going to have like one day where like, oh, now they're going to be, eating this. And you're probably not going to want to battle with a 3 and a 5-year-old about like, if you have kind of that policy in your house or you've had it about like kind of no structure. You can decide like ahead of time how you're going to deal with it. And then do you have a partner who's also parenting? Because you want to make sure they're on the same page as you, because when they're divergent, that really, if you guys are not on the same page, and then like, you're like, okay, this is what we're going to do for dinner. We're going to ahead of time, you're going to do like a mental rehearsal. They have free access to food, but just want healthier choices. Yes, he's on the same page. Awesome. So then you can like create that, maybe involve them too and go to the store, or they can help you pick out. And then you kind of like start to gradually what they can reach and what's in their pantry. And then that they can go for. And then you have maybe a, we are both, I'm sorry, we are both, I don't know what indie is, I'm sorry, and struggle with this as kids too. Yes, okay, so that doesn't have to mean anything, like as parents, okay? You don't have to, oh, neurodivergent, I'm sorry, I knew that. Okay. So yeah, so the hyper focus maybe tendency on this, you want to just like let that go a little bit, okay? Boundaries are good. Just know you're showing up. You don't cause, you don't control it. Toddlers also, like I know the 5-year-old is more school age, but the that age, those ages, like you have to look at what they're eating over a week's time, and you can't get to, they graze, and that's okay. Like they're intuitive eaters, right? But you want to like, maybe your goal and your vision is to just kind of gradually add in the positive options too. And, here's, instead of like feeling like you're taking it away, you're kind of gradually adding in the positive, which is a really great way of doing it. And then try to make it fun. Like maybe you're cooking with them, those things, you're prepping them, and they're helping pick out so they have some autonomy, or give them 2 choices of options that they can have, and then they can choose that. So then they feel like that, but those are options that you feel good about. Okay. And I just worry they don't get enough vitamin and minerals. I how we do vitamins, but yeah, I know it's a worry, but if their pediatrician says they're growing okay, And then I'm sure they're doing fine. But yeah, and you give them vitamins. But I would try that and look at the division of responsibility, and then just try like offering. You're not going to go, if we try to change up too many things at once, it won't work. You're going to get rebellion, and then also it's going to be hard for you as a parent. You don't want to go to this is what you're stuck in right now, like the all or nothing thinking. It's like the diet thinking. The 5-year-old backslid from 15th to 9th percentile, so we've been worried. Okay. Yeah, and so they're probably following that, I'm sure, right? But was the child still growing? And then did they have a height spurt or something, but not a, yeah, there's a lot of factors and variables. You may want to be able to add in some, the thing with the processed foods, if you could try to get them off of the ultra processed foods, that's the most important thing to gradually transition, even if it's like processed foods, but like stay away from the ultra processed foods that have all the added like sugar, trans fats, salt, because it's the trifecta that gets us like addicted to it. And then from an early age. So the processed food addiction is like really real. So it's that combination of all those flavors together. So if you could intentionally like try to maybe have less of that if you're doing that. Okay. Yes, we're working closely with doctor. I think she's having a growth spurt. Yeah. Yeah, that's what we're trying to do, but they just stop eating when we take it away. Oh, okay. Yeah. So you don't want to, so just drop the reins. You don't want to get into a power struggle with it because you can't force them, right? You can't force them. And then maybe you have the other, like, you don't want to, it depends on like the kind of parent you are. Like, if like with the sleep analogy, like I had some parents who were like, this is driving me nuts. The baby's still waking up several times a night. I want to do sleep training. Other parents are like, no, I'm not going to do that. Like, I cannot let my baby cry. And then I'd be like, well, that's going to be just a transitional thing, probably, and then it'll get better. But just know that. So, I mean, you choose. You can't force it. You can just provide it. So you can provide provide some structure, make some changes, add in the positive, and make sure they're getting protein and healthy fat. Yeah, exactly. I know, like we want them to sleep through the night, but I mean, I had one family, I still remember them. I just loved them so much. And I saw them for a prenatal visit and they brought their baby to me. And then he just would not sleep through the night. And they were just so exhausted. And they both worked and they brought him in for a well child check. And I said, well, okay, here's what the book says, and here's what you can do is you can, do this routine and then, put him down and then, you gradually walk away and then you let him cry for this many minutes and then you go in and then you do this, Pat, and then you let him cry for longer. And then they just were like, they looked at each other and they looked at me. We burst out laughing and they were like, hell no, we are never doing that. Like, and I was like, okay, fine. That's out the door. You have to know your audience, right? And all of it's fine, right? I mean, the main thing is to not get into a big, like, freaked out alarm worry about it, and just know that like you have really good intentions, that over time it's going to get better. Okay. You're not stuck in it. My son had a lot of food allergies when he was little and when I was breastfeeding him. And then we had to like limit, a lot of stuff. So he was kind of a lot more of a pickier eater. And I mean, he still is more picky for sure than like my girls. And he can eat a lot of food now because he's like 15, he's like 6 foot and still growing a ton. But I just told him, I'm like, Andrew, you're really not like allergic to a lot of these foods. And there's no reason why you can't just start trying and eating more of them. And like, he won't eat salad really. But I'm like, there's no reason why. Like Dad and I aren't picky. We eat salads all the time around here. Let's have you start eating them. You know, like those are the conversations I have with him now, but he's 15, you know. So you may get there. Usually the palate gets better as we get older. Okay, so that's a good. Anybody else have any coaching that needs? Yeah, I love Ellen Satter's work. It's beautiful. It's beautiful. She has a book called This Child of Mine. So, and then the other thing is for the 3 and the 5-year-old, do they have any, yeah, you definitely don't want to like create the power struggles and the battles with the food between you all. So any books to read for adults? Well, I love the book, The Obesity Code, and I love Janine Roth's books. Janine Roth is an amazing writer, funny, awesome. You know, she's been on Oprah, and her books are really like they're really easy to read because they're funny, and she's amazing. Here's a book I'm reading. It's about it's a body positive book, and it has 5 components of body positivity, which is awesome. And so rejecting diet culture, reclaiming your health, creating your own definition of health, practicing intuitive self-care, declaring your own authentic beauty, you know, let's get rid of the standard beauty or whatever our society's telling us. It's changing all the time. Not listening to your negative inner critic all the time. Cultivating self-love. I mean, it's all the stuff I do with the IME community, so I'm working through that. Here's another cool one. Intuitive eating. This is a workbook for teens, and I really love it so much. Yeah, I love Body Positive Institute. I have signed up for a course with them so I can become a facilitator. So my 5 steps to say I am me is like my full self-acceptance steps that I coach teens on right away when they join. But anyway, it's like so important. It's a foundation for IME community, so check it out. And that's going to be my body positive course, which I'm so excited about it, doing some more work and videos for them. So if you know a teen, 12 to 18, tell them to join the community. I'm going to be adding that in there. So cool. Okay, intuitive eating. This is the workbook for teens, but these 2 are actually, it just has 1, but I know there's 2 dietitians. Elise Resch, R-E-S-C-H. This is a really famous book, actually, and it's awesome. And so intuitive eating is a body positive, non-diet approach to building a healthy relationship with food. So there's a lot of great intuitive eating coaches on TikTok. There's a lot of misconceptions about intuitive eating. Intuitive eating is not just eating whatever you want. And I really believe in my whole heart, and I know that other doctors like me believe this, is that you really have to do some work on crushing your sugar cravings, on eating quality food, on getting your body fat adapted to really be an intuitive eater. So if we say like, oh, I'm going to be intuitive eating, I'm just going to listen to my body when you're insulin resistant and you're leptin resistant and you got lots of ghrelin and habit hunger, I'm sorry, but there's no way that I could have been an intuitive eater when I started this. I just couldn't. Now I am an intuitive eater. There's me. That was my favorite trip with my family to Hawaii. We went to the Big Island. It was awesome. Okay. So those are all awesome books. The Obesity Code by Dr. Jason Fung. And then the person, if you do feel like you have like a food addiction, sugar addiction, you won't want to probably get this book. But I mean, it's like a textbook. But Joan Ifland, this is her. I love her. She's a PhD. And she's just, check out her website. It's called Food Addiction Reset. And she has a whole like way of like, and I'm going to coach you on some of this stuff too on TikTok. But she has, yeah, exactly. You're not going to, LOL. I mean, like every chapter, it's like incredible the level of research that she's done. And she's just awesome and so kind. and is the guru on this, but really has a lot of like environmental controls and really helps you shift your brain pathways to shift to create and rewire your brain, and move away from processed food addiction. And she also has done a lot of research and written articles on the components of processed food addiction and why it is exactly like addiction to nicotine and to opioids and to alcohol. And she talks about the food addiction business model. Actually, she's the one I heard about it from, and how powerful it's been, and that big tobacco took over food and created the same exact addiction business model that they did for tobacco. And they've been obviously very successful. So, I mean, you think about diet industry, they're concerned, they just want profits, right? And they're getting them. And then the food industry has the food addiction business model, so they want profit. Health systems, they want, the sicker we are, the more profits, the more bariatric surgeries, the more special studies, the more referrals, all the stuff, okay? So, I mean, who's focused on prevention? And if we wait for all of these things to be resolved policy-wise and everyone to have access to healthy foods, and as we've seen in the pandemic, it's gotten worse for us, it's never gonna happen, right? I mean, we can't just sit around and wait for that. We can all work together to do that and mobilize our policymakers, but we're not going to fix and solve that. So we have to ourselves have an individual approach. That's why I call it I and me. So you have to have your individual approach. This flipped thing, mirror image, freaks me out every time. You have to have the individual approach and then the support of a community where you feel belonging and support. Okay. So you can show up for yourself, even though it's hard when the healthy choice is not the easy choice. It's the unhealthy choice is the easy choice, and we're conditioned to it. But you can intentionally, like, really, no money in a cure, right? No money in a cure, not for insurance, companies. There's just nothing. Big pharma. Look at that. I mean, come on, look at these industries that have all the power, that are, perpetuating it, have caused it, are perpetuating it, and are feeding off, their profits are fed off of our sick society. And it's terrible, but we're not stuck in it. We can turn it. But that's why I love TikTok, because you can like get on these platforms and really make a difference. I mean, because you get more momentum on a platform like TikTok than I did like in a clinic, seeing patients, one-on-one in a system that wasn't agile and wasn't responsive and wouldn't look at the outcomes of the program to see if it's going to work, So anyway, I'd rather show up here and coach you all, because coaching's more powerful anyway. Okay, so create some thought awareness around your sugar cravings, or however you feel, conditioning pathways in your brain for sugar, your urges, and start creating some thought awareness and see what those powerful beliefs are that are probably keeping you stuck. Okay, and work on that. So it's almost 8 o'clock, and then I'll probably do some videos tomorrow. I'll do some more on sugar, honey. Okay, thanks for joining. Thank you all. Have a great night.